In my recent top 10 commanders videos, I did not rate Isildur very high. A bunch of people in the comment section kind of gave me a hard time about it, and so I'm here to say you guys were right. Isildur is pretty freaking incredible. I have some really awesome Isildur reports to show you guys coming up for one of the most wailed out Isildurs that I have ever seen. Let's get into it. Alright guys, we'll start things off by looking at a couple of reports. We have my friend CharlieSheen here. He is a absolutely massive whale. He sent me some reports, gave me permission to use them in the video, so huge shout out to him for doing that. We'll start things off by checking out his Isildur's gear. Like I said, this guy is whaled out almost to the maximum. He does have Isildur's unique item, which comes with a whopping +6 attack for men and elves, as well as +6 army HP for Ranger Dunedain and Rangers of the North. This thing would probably be completely broken if this was just +6 army HP, or like 6 army HP to men and elves. Either way, really nice weapon overall because that attack bonus is so substantial, and it comes with 36 might and a huge Sun and Moon Splendor, which as he refines this thing up is going to start being pretty nasty. 15% chances aren't that awesome, but anytime he refines this, that's going to go up and up and up. He's also using a Ranger's Shroud with Resistance. Super nice chess piece as the way he likes to build. His Isildur does rely a lot on range damage, so this provides army attack to ranged units and some amount of resistance to focus damage and burn damage. He has a Hunter's Guide, again, for the extra army attack for those ranged units. And Aegis, one of the most powerful effects on a helm in this game. 100% chance in the first 4 rounds to gain stun immunity and madness immunity. And then to top it all off, he is running a Night Star with Opportune Strike, which is giving a 100% chance for his units every single round to hit for maximum damage. This is not a very big deal on Sentinels, as their damage range is only 1, but on Dunedain it can be pretty solid. Doesn't really help Rangers of the North that much either, but I have seen him running with like sharpshooters as well. Any type of unit that has a reasonably wide damage variance is going to impact them quite a lot. He's fighting a pretty well-geared Sauron here. I do have to say in this report, in my opinion, the gear advantage is quite solidly in Charlie's favor. However, this Sauron is not a slouch by any means, and Charlie is down by 3 levels. In my opinion, and I don't mean to pick on this player by any means, he's a very strong player. I just think that his build could be a little bit better. I'm really not a huge fan of Ring of Terror because there are so many Madness Immune helms running around, whether that's the Aegis effect or just the Resolve effect on a Horseman's helm. In my opinion, I think this would be a much scarier Sauron if it wasn't scary enough already, if he had more points in more focused damage skills. Either way, we can go through and check out the damage here. As you can see, the Sentinels did a very solid amount of damage, and unsurprisingly, with Isildur, the Dunedain absolutely crushed it with 167,000 damage, and this is against a Sauron that does not have any ranged units at all. For his part, the Reapers did a pretty substantial amount of damage. We'll scroll up and find one more report that I wanted to show you guys before we get into the skill breakdown. Not that one. Here we go. This one is quite solid. I was trying to find a relatively balanced report here. Charlie, the level of whale that he is, it can be kind of hard to find solid reports sometimes. We'll go ahead and check out the Sunni's gear real quick. Not going to go through all of it, but pretty standard stuff from her. Running a lot of extra attack, running 2 evil men units, and then of course arbalests so that they stack that incredible damage bonus that she provides. And in this fight, actually the Dunes did not do very much damage. I imagine based on these deaths and stuff here, that they pretty much just got focused down immediately is what it looks like happened. I don't want to read through the whole report during the video. But once again, all of that extra range damage really coming into play on the Sentinels, doing 160,000 damage there. Keep in mind that Charlie is down by 5 levels in this report. However, once again, I would say he does have a pretty substantial gear advantage over this Sunni. So let's go ahead and talk about Charlie's skill build. Please keep in mind that this is specifically for fighting evil, as we are in a huge war with Gundabad on our server, in which case he has opted to max out the R3 title. This is giving the Dunedain a chance for follow-up every single round, and it lets him take Champion of the Light, which has been incredibly useful because this faction is using a lot of Reapers and a lot of Arbalests, so that 28% damage bonus is really coming into play. Other than that, he's going for a Great King with Consequence of Greed. I feel like if you're running into a lot of Madness immunity, you could really drop these points into something else. Additionally, he is taking Last Alliance, and I do want to point out one thing about this skill is you have to have men and elves in your army for it to activate. So it says the next 7 instances of damage received minus 90%. When your army includes only men and elves, you have to have both. It's not an or, it's an and. And it does reduce a little bit. It's like Arwen's Respect 5 title. Every time you do take an instance of damage, the 90% is lower and lower and lower. So it's not 90% the full time for the 7 instances of damage. And I do want to go ahead and talk about another potential build that can be used on Isildur, in my opinion, as that build is pretty specifically for the people we're fighting right now. I want to mention, before I talk about the other build, I really am not a huge fan of his top R0 tree, because Ring Bearers has a chance of him succumbing to madness, which can be relatively awkward. Also, the effect itself, the chance to evade attacks, is only applicable to physical damage, and since it's evasion, avoidance, whatever you want to call it, it's completely countered by Pursuit. And as I've talked about in a lot of videos, there's just so much Pursuit running around right now that I think it's very likely that you're going to run into a fight, and this is just going to say, for 15 points, Commander, 25% chance of succumbing to madness, because they're going to have Pursuit, and that evasion isn't going to do anything. Additionally, there's tons of anti-madness running around, which means Ring of Terror has a high chance of not doing anything at all. So if you're running into a commander that has, say, like a Sunni with Aegis and Pursuit Fireworks, very common combination on her, you're going to have 22 points that effectively say 25% chance of your commander succumbing to madness for 22 points. That all being said, I do think that the full R5 tree is actually quite solid for Isildur. Free Peoples is a very respectable skill. You're going to be running men and elves on this guy. Having an extra 14% damage reduction is nothing to sneer at by any means. I think putting at least 1 point into Dunedain Bloodline as pretty much any build on Isildur is solid. You're going to spend a total of 3 points to get +2 attack, and then a little bit of extra defense. If you have the extra points, that's not bad at all. Otherwise, I think Coalition is a relatively underrated skill. Ultimately, it's going to come down to your army setup. I think I've seen the most success on Isildur when they're running like a full ranged build with massive amounts of plus range damage. So as Arnor, let's say you're running Sentinel, Sharpshooter, Ranger of the North, you're going to have 2 of your units, particularly those Sharpshooters, that have a high chance to do maximum damage every single round. The elf units, the sentinels in that case, are going to have a chance of gaining initiative. And basically the idea behind the build is to burst people down during the window of Last Alliance as well as Great King. Great King saying that during the first round, enemy units deal minimum damage, and then in later rounds of combat, all of your army is going to do extra damage. So basically what Isildur can do is you layer on early levels of damage mitigation thanks to Great King and Last Alliance, potentially 1 round of madness on your enemy, and you just let those ranged units go to town and they just shred things once the Great King damage bonus comes online. Ultimately, I think that particular build plays a lot like Gil-galad, where you're using those early rounds of combat to just gain an insurmountable advantage for your army. However, if you are going to be using Dunedain, as they're extremely effective against commanders like Sunind, even Gil-galad, anybody that's going to be crutching on range damage, I do think that the R3 build does have a lot of potential. However, keep in mind, like this, I would say it completely necessitates using Dunedain, because you don't want to put the points into here just for these extra skills if you're not going to be running dunes. As just for Rangers of the North, these guys' entire job is just to die. They don't do that much damage. They are relatively tanky, but you don't want to put 15 points into a skill to boost the damage of a tank unit who is going to be absorbing attacks for your army and thus dying. It's not going to do them any good to have follow-up when they're just dead. However, if you are trying to snipe ranged units, having basically a 50% chance to attack twice on your dunes who have an incredible damage bonus against those ranged units can be quite good. So like I said, Charlie's specific build is for fighting ranged units, and otherwise, I think generally you'll want to focus on the bottom R0 tree as well as the full R5 tree, run full range units, and burst people down. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.